Hey 302, I'm Jackie Ferris. This week we're at Nemours Estate and we're checking out their garden, a replica of the gardens of Versailles. Put on your walking shoes, the 302 is taking a tour. Hey there 302, we are at Nemours Estate talking about all of the history behind this beautiful, beautiful place. I'm joined now by Jean Hirschner. She is the Associate Director here. Jean, thank you very much for joining us.
Well, thank you very much for coming.
So Nemours was built in 1910, is that right?
Yes, Alfred and his second wife, Alicia DuPont, built the property in 1910. And Alfred, it was a labor of love for Alfred between 1910 and his death in 1935. Currently, the estate is 200 acres, and it has 15 acres of formal gardens, and the rest is woodlands and meadows and places for our guests to explore.
It's a really beautiful place to visit. Now, when we talk about the gardens, just really everything is French inspired. Talk to us a little bit about the gardens and how they're connected to Versailles.
Thank you. So Alfred and Alicia both were Francophiles. Alfred's family had descended from France. In fact, the term Nemours comes from the place where Alfred's great-great-grandfather represented in the court of Louis XVI in France. So really strong French connections, and Alicia, his second wife, was a Francophile herself. So the house itself is modeled loosely after the Petit Trianon, which is a house of Marie Antoinette's on the grounds of Versailles.
And when you walk through, there are so many beautiful rooms, and you really can see the places where they lived and they worked, and everything is kind of kept the way they had it way back when, right?
Yes, one of the remarkable things about Nemours Estate is that all of our collections, almost all of our collections, are entirely original. And Mrs. DuPont, Mrs. Jessie Ball DuPont, the last Mrs. DuPont and actually the longest resident here at the estate, upon her death, wanted the mansion to be open and presented as a home. So we don't have a lot of the barriers and the walls and the plexiglass that a lot of other museums have. We really interpret the estate as a home. We have a number of outbuildings as well that supported the mansion here. The mansion is 47,000 square feet. So there's a lot of places to explore, both inside and out.
It's really gorgeous. Tell us a little bit about the room that we're in right now.
This is the reception hall. This is of course, when you come in the front door, this is where our staff greets you, and it's really an impressive and yet homey kind of feel to it. So you can pass straight through the reception hall onto the back terrace and into the gardens, or use this as a starting place for your visit through the mansion on all 3 floors. So there's a basement below us, and then there's an upstairs where their guests would stay.
Now, when you walk through, you see a lot of beautiful works of art, but there are a lot of family portraits here. Let's start with the one over the fireplace. Who is that?
So over the fireplace is Mr. DuPont himself. And it's funny, a lot of the workers in the Hagley powder mills who worked with him early in his life told him they never saw him looking quite so fierce. So he was Mr. DuPont. Despite that, the look in that portrait was very jovial, very, very smart. But a Renaissance man, and he had a great sense of humor. Miss Jessie Ball DuPont that I mentioned earlier, she also had a great sense of humor. And you see one of the things about the estate and being presented as a home, you see wonderful works of art, as you're mentioning, but you also see ordinary, everyday things that they bought because they liked them. Not because they were going to be valuable or that they were valuable, but because they just liked them.
They really had a love story. Now, she was 20 years younger,
yes,
but they, lived together, and you see portraits of her as well, and you can kind of see his love for her in some of these portraits.
Yes. So the estate, as I mentioned, was built with his second wife, Alicia. Alicia was at the estate until her death in 1920. So right after they built the estate in 1910, Alfred and his second wife, Alicia, actually had a series of heartbreaks. They lost 4 children as infants between 1910 and 1917. And it was it directed Alicia's philanthropy into creating a DuPont maternity hospital in Cambridge, Maryland. And I think Alicia's desire to give back to other women that she related to really inspired Alfred in his own philanthropy, which would then carry through lifelong. In 1920, Alicia died quite suddenly. She was traveling to Florida at the time and had a heart attack on the way. So in 1921, then, Alfred married Jessie Ball DuPont. He had known her for years, had met her family in the northern neck of Virginia long ago, and I think it was 1899, and the families had stayed in touch. And then Mrs. DuPont was here until her death in 1970.
And there are portraits in 2 rooms of her.
Yeah, well, yeah, so there is a portrait in the morning room and in the music room of Mrs. DuPont.
Whenever we talk about the philanthropy of the DuPonts, they really wanted to make sure that their heart followed their money. And the hospital is just not too far from this house, is that right?
That's right. That's right. Mr. DuPont and Mrs. DuPont were very quiet about their philanthropy. They did it because it was the right thing to do. Mr. DuPont established the Delaware Symphony earlier on. Mrs. DuPont the third Mrs. DuPont came from very modest beginnings herself, and Alfred had worked in the Hagley Yards early in his life, so with regular guys, so he had a real heart for folks. He, in the 19-teens, before he and Jessie married, established a pension system in Delaware and actually funded it privately himself for several years, so that destitute older folks, especially couples, had some assistance in their lives. After his death in 1935, it was his desire to establish the Nemours Foundation, and it was up to Mrs. DuPont to really implement that vision, and she did it fantastically. She was his business partner and confidant and soulmate, and carried that through with great passion until her death. There's so much to talk about here at the estate. The humanity of the DuPonts and their desire to give back is really a remarkable story. They didn't send their philanthropy away like so many folks did. They kept it right here at home, literally right here at home. And the hospital today, there's a lot of back and forth. There's a lot of families, hospital families that come here. Mm-hmm. We admit all of the inpatient, outpatient families from the hospital for free here at the estate, because that's what the DuPonts, we believe, would want us to do. And we carry as much as we can programmatic-wise over into the hospital for the kids that can't come over, but are in there for weeks and months.
All right, Jean, thank you very much for joining us.
Well, thank you very much for coming. Appreciate the visit.
We'll be right back.
Hey, I'm Sue Frost, and I wish you an organized new year on the 302.
Welcome back. We're exploring Nemours. We are now in the conservatory. I'm joined by Paula Phipps. She is the interpretive program supervisor. This room, Paula, is gorgeous.
It is. It's my favorite room in the house. It's probably the most informal, but still I think the most beautiful.
When you look at it, it's amazing because it's not wallpaper, it's actual like lattices or trellises on the wall.
Exactly. This is a room that was designed to blend the indoors and the outdoors, so you see elements that you might find outdoors inside. You can find this trellis work on the exterior as well.
It's absolutely gorgeous, and when you walk through the house, you see a lot of intricate detail, from gold leaf on the ceilings to, medallions where the chandeliers are. Just really beautiful French-inspired touches.
Yes, absolutely. And there's that cliche is they don't make them like they used to. Well, they really don't. So, this house is exquisite. I like to imagine, how many craftsmen were in here and workers to do all these wonderful details to make it this elegant level that we have today.
And it's really amazing when you look at even the floors in this room. This is marble, right?
Right.
And this entire place was put together in 18
months. I know, it's hard to believe. There was a lot of the details that weren't completed, but the majority of the house, it was 18 months. I don't think that would happen today.
So when someone comes to visit Nemours, what are some of the things that they have to be mindful of? I know that you're only open, for a partial schedule.
Right.
Talk to me about that.
So we're open May 1st until the end of December. And this season, we're changing our hours just a little bit. We are going to be open Tuesday through Sunday from 10 to 5. We'll still be closed on Mondays, but Tuesday through Sunday, 10 to 5.
Now, I know you have a lot of special events throughout the year.
Right.
In June, after you open, you have Garden Day. What's that?
So Garden Day is one of our family-friendly days. It's really a day we focus on the gardens. We have lots of outdoor activities for kids and families. We have fishing, we have lawn games, we have gnome hunts, we have all kinds of fun things. A lot of garden activities, garden carts. Last year we had a pollinator parade so the kids can come and dress up. So we're hoping this June that we'll have a lot more of that going on. So it's a fun day, really focusing more on the kids.
And you also focus on the dogs, is that right?
In August, we do Dog Days of August. So through the whole month of August, there are various dog programs we'll be having. And last year, we had some of our police departments bring their canine dogs out. And last August, we did our very first movies at the mansion, where we showed 101 Dalmatians. So that was a lot of fun. So expect that to happen this year, too.
Now, what about September? I understand that is a very special month for Nemours.
It is. That's when we have our event, Nemours 1932. And it all stems from an event that took place here in 1932 in September, when Mr. and Mrs. DuPont decided to open up the house to the public and the gardens to the public. It was a fundraiser for one of Mrs. DuPont's charities that she was very close with. And they both thought, nobody's going to come. And that weekend they had about 3,000 people show up. So the fee was $1.50 for the grounds and the mansion. And so we decided we were going to do it a couple years ago, and it was a great success. So that will continue. It's one of our signature events in September now.
Now, that original event is part of the reason why the mansion is now a public event, right?
Right, we believe so. It was soon after we did our first Nemours 1932 that our executive director, John Rum, found information that Ms. DuPont actually changed his will a couple of months after that initial event that would open the property to the public for their entertainment and their pleasure. So we really think it had a big impact on him to realize that people do want to come here and they do want to see it and they can enjoy it and they love the gardens. So we really think that was the instigator for having the house open to the public.
Now, I know that it's gorgeous here. Everywhere you go, it's breathtaking. But I can imagine for the holidays, it takes it up a little bit.
It does. It's a completely different experience. I mean, it is beautiful year-round, no question about it. But during the holidays, it's a completely different experience. The rooms are all decorated and sometimes over the top. But we like to bring out some collection pieces that aren't normally on display, which is something it's really nice to do. We don't really have gallery space, so we're sort of limited on what we can bring out and put on display, but the holidays are the time we can bring out that other set of dishes that never get seen, those other pieces that are in storage that never get seen. So that's another thing we have to look forward to, plus all the beautiful holiday decorations.
Sure. And I know when people come, you can appreciate everything that's in the mansion now, but there may be stories behind different pieces, and there are guides
Right.
that can take you through. Talk to me a little bit about the experience with a guide.
Right. So, the house is self-guided, so you don't have to have someone take you through. You can wander around on your own. We do have our interpreters stationed around the house, and that will answer all your questions for you. We also have signage, but some people want that little extra, and they want to have a guided tour. So we do have what we call highlight tours, and they're every hour on the hour, and it's a chance for the interpreter to show you the things that they are particularly interested in. If they have, a particular room or a storyline they want to tell you about, that's when they can do that. So it's a very personal kind of tour from the interpreter side, but it also gives the visitors a little bit more information as well.
So if someone wants to know more about the tours, when you're open and the programs, where do they go?
They can go to our website, and they can also follow us on Facebook and on Instagram.
Excellent. Paula, thank you very much
Thank
for
you.
sharing all of this.
You're very welcome. Thank you for coming.
We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Inez Conover at Bewitched and Bedazzled in Rehoboth, and I think 302 is magical.
Welcome back. We've come outside to this gorgeous garden. I'm joined by Ken Darsney. He is the manager of the garden and the grounds. Ken, thank you very much for joining us. This is a breathtaking spot, and it's all modeled after Versailles?
It is. So when Alfred first developed the garden beginning in 1912, 1911, right after the completion of the mansion, he felt a deep homage to his French family heritage, and also his new bride was a huge lover of everything French. So the entire garden immediately became modeled after a mini version of Versailles, of all the great French and European gardens that Alfred had remembered and had visited since.
And it's complete with, on the very end, a Temple of Love. Can you talk to us about that?
Right, the Temple of Love is almost a one-to-one recreation of the Tempietto from the Petit Trianon in Versailles. Was the very last garden structure that was installed in the garden prior to Alfred's death in 1935. From the front door all the way to the third of a mile at the end of the garden, the door from the front door all the way to the end lines up perfectly, complete through the entire garden. Extremely formal, very strict lines, and very reminiscent of what you would see in a European garden.
Whenever you look at it from above, you can see a lot of the hedges they're carved out so beautifully. Can you talk about that?
Right, and it doesn't come easy. It's a lot of work to maintain the formality of this look. A lot of early gardens had this look because it was a testament to the amount of labor you had working for you at the time. So this look takes an enormous amount of manpower to accomplish. We have a crew of 11 that does an amazing job all year long for over 200 acres. The hedge alone is 4.5 miles of hedge that needs to be formally clipped on a regular basis.
Now, the fountains, is this fountain that we see here, is that a replica of one from Versailles as well?
That's actually a very subdued fountain. So the actual body of water right there was the family swimming pool at one point. It was used by the grandchildren, and children would come and actually use it. There was a boat that floated through the middle, and there was a very simple fountain right in the middle. Alfred was a lover of water features. The largest water feature we have is down in the bottom part of the garden called the Sunken Gardens. Massive fountain work coming up from all the walls, all designed by Alfred himself.
I see, so he kind of put his own spin on his recreation of the Versailles garden.
He really did, he really did. We like to say that it's a French garden with English sensibilities and a touch of American whimsy. Alfred very much injected himself into all aspects of everything out here.
Now, talk to me about the statues. They're everywhere, and they're really breathtaking.
They are, and he was a collector. He liked what he liked. He would see things in auction houses. He would look for certain things to fit certain spots, and then sometimes he would have something commissioned. So the main gold statue you see in the middle of the Maze Garden right now is called Achievement, and that is a statue he had commissioned in honor of Jessie, his third wife. And it is what man can accomplish with the help of a good woman. It is a bronze statue completely covered in 23-karat gold leaf.
Talk to me about the gates. We have one from Catherine the Great and one from Wilmington Palace, is that right?
So the first gate that was installed at the entrance gate was bought at an auction house by Alfred, and it was from the palace of the Wimbledon estate from England. And then many years later, he worked with the architect and felt he needed to balance the forecourt. And again found these gates from the palace of Catherine the Great coming up for sale. Great story there was he knew if he had walked into the auction house, he would have had paid a much higher rate. So Jesse's brother, Ed Ball, dressed very shabbily and bid at a very low increments and wound up getting the gates from the auction house for a fraction of the price.
It's amazing the stories behind the individual pieces that when people come here, they can learn. I know that there are tours inside, but is there like a visitor's guide to the gardens?
So right now we have a daily tour at 12 o'clock that starts on the front door of the mansion. The first Saturdays of every month we have a more in-depth tour of a different topic. That changes throughout the year, and each month we'll have a different theme or topic that we kind of dive into a little more.
Now there's more to what visitors can enjoy when they come than just the gardens. There's like walking paths. Talk to me a little bit about you know, the other features.
Right, so for the longest time, the guests that came through these gates would only experience the very formal part of the garden. And it is stunning, and it's 50 acres and it's breathtaking. However, this is a 225-acre property. We have beautiful woodlands, natural woodlands. We have woodland trails. We have man-made springs that are built out on the property that guests can visit. Natural areas, meadows. We have plenty of areas to spread out and explore and find whatever you're looking for in a public garden.
I know that I'm looking at this garden and I'm thinking to myself, how can I do some of this at my house? Do you have people that ask for advice on making their gardens beautiful? Do you have classes or things like that?
So we don't have classes right now, but what we do is we handle a lot of questions. We have those questions all the time. And it's really easy to look at something so grand and say we could never achieve this look at home, and I can assure you that it's the same basic techniques that somebody would use in their home garden applied to a larger scale. So things like pruning, when to mulch, how to mow your grass, the height to cut grass, those little things make a huge difference, and those are tips and tricks that we offer our guests all the time.
Excellent. Well, I'm going to start my list of questions now. Ken, thank you very much
Thank you, Jackie.
talking to us about this beautiful garden.
Pleasure having you.
We'll be right back. That'll do it for this episode. For more information on this beautiful place, visit nemoursestate.org. We leave you now with an aerial view of the gardens. Until next time, we'll see you on the 302.